Bowl is just 3 days away, and with that in mind, we are taking a look at the NFL and its new international initiative.
The league is attempting to tie in its sports events with politics across the globe. So for more, we are joined by Evan Cooper. He is a research analyst at the Stimson Center, and he works on their Reimagining U.S. Grand Strategy program. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
For a long time, it was don't mix my sports with politics. It appears that, well, one, it's happening. There's nothing you can do about it at this point, but maybe there's a way to use it to America's advantage. Explain.
Yeah, well, in reality, sports and politics have been mixing for a long time.
Yes.
You know, you go back to the Olympics in Nazi Germany and Owens representing the U.S. there, and in the NFL. There has been a lot of discussion about politics going back to the integration of football and since then. But now there's kind of this recognition that the NFL represents the U.S. on the global stage. There are millions of viewers around the world who watch the sport, who listen to what the athletes say. And so there needs to be some thinking about how are people seeing the country through this lens of sport. So the NFL has made this great push through its global markets program to expand on 4 other continents now. And with games happening around the world, there'll be 9 international games next year. They're thinking about how do we actually kind of see how foreign audiences are thinking about the country and how we represent it.
Well, it's a very interesting time for this push, right? Because there is an anti-American sentiment building in many countries abroad. How do you see that interfering or impacting this initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sport is so popular that it's not going to get in the way of people watching and consuming football. It may offer challenges, political challenges in certain countries that may not want to be affiliated at times with what they see as cruel or disruptive U.S. policy, and trade and the kind of culture war politics will bleed into sport as well. But I think even more so, it's an opportunity for the United States to engage with the world in a different way, a kind of more softer, engaging way, which is ironic given that it's the sport of football. But this ultimately really plays to people's interests, and they see these athletes as heroes and people to admire.
What does this partnership ultimately look like on the ground in these countries?
Yeah, so it's at a variety of levels. First and foremost, it's a commercial partnership. The NFL has offered up market access to teams based on the country, and the ties tend to be tried to tie into something that the teams have in common. So I don't know if you saw, but the Saints are playing in Paris next year, that French connection going way back. So first and foremost, it's a commercial tie. There is also a partnership now with the State Department's Office of Sports Diplomacy, where they're going to be kind of helping bring players to these foreign audiences to try and align with U.S. messaging in these countries. It can be really hard. These players have a full-time job, a really hard job, and getting them to stay on message and not say something that might upset the balance with these countries is its own particular challenge. And then using them to kind of advance the messaging that the State Department and perhaps these countries may want to engage in as well.
Different State Departments from administration to administration have different desires and wants and needs. So if this strategy continues beyond the Trump administration, and let's say a Democrat wins the presidency, does that change things? Like how will it continue if a State Department changes every single administration?
Yeah, I think this has actually been one of the strange constants for quite a while now in U.S. foreign policy is kind of this recognition, maybe not fully recognized or realized, that sport can play an important role in foreign policy, but there's bipartisan interest in this. There was a bill sponsored late last year, the American Decade in Sports Act, that recognizes kind of the need for a strategy to engage in these major sporting events like the Olympics and the World Cup, put America's best foot forward in these events. And so really, I think there's interest across the board, and it probably would stay relatively the same. I don't expect this to be an area where you see big swing, which is remarkable in its own way.
So sports, of course, does fall under the umbrella of culture, American culture. And you have a particular interest in the American exportation of culture, something we've done for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Can you expound on that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion recently about American soft power. What does that look like? And it's our musicians going abroad. It's our athletes going abroad. It's people engaging with American art. And this ultimately helps communicate American values and American interest to foreign audiences. And this has been something that we've done for a long time. We really had a robust strategy of this during the Cold War when there was a real ideological enemy. That's kind of fallen to the wayside as far as having a strategic way to engage the world through American culture. And it's also really undermined by kind of the current internal destruction of some of our major cultural institutions. The National Endowment for the Arts, the Kennedy Center is a premier hosting of foreign musicians as well, allowing Americans to interact with foreign music and understand foreign cultures, plays through this lens. And so we are seeing some real kind of hits to that form of American power, but ultimately it remains driven by often commercial interests and individuals who just want to share their artistic creation, their talents with the world.
Because as we know, this administration has pulled back a lot of soft power where we had been, whether it's health care or any number of things, we're doing less of it. So this does seem to be on the front burner.
Yes, I mean, it's a bit of a paradox, because on the one hand, the Trump administration has really recognized that American cultural power is important. I mean, you see the president engaging in a lot of these cultural moments. He attended an NFL game this season and talked from the booth during a Commanders game. He has seemingly cared deeply about the Kennedy Center and the type of artists that are at the Kennedy Center. And yet at the same time, these institutions that kind of allow the support for these artists traveling abroad through the State Department's Education and Cultural Affairs Bureau that facilitate giving out grants to allow American cultural artists, culinary luminaries to go around the world and engage with foreign audiences have been cut. And that is curtailing our ability to engage the world through this outlet.
So I'm thinking about this partnership and maybe some of the pitfalls, right? Because some folks may look at it and say it's a little rich that the Trump State Department wants to partner with the NFL when Trump chastised Colin Kaepernick for kneeling. The NFL just fined a guy for taking a stance on the Israel-Palestine war in Gaza. You got Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl on Sunday. He made a statement critical of ICE at the Grammys. One could maybe expect him to do something similar at the Super Bowl. If that happens, what does that mean for this partnership? Because I got to think the State Department probably isn't just going to go and support what Bad Bunny or any other athlete has to say when they're critical of the U.S. government.
Yeah, it's tricky for the State Department. I don't envy them in that role, because certainly it will create, especially during the international games, players speaking out, taking a very different line in the administration could lead to kind of focus, at the very least, if not kind of a diplomatic incident. There's always that risk. But at the same time, American freedom of expression is one of our most sacredly held values and something to lift up. And those contradictions, when kind of shown to foreign audiences, can be quite awesome to see that, you can still stand in front of an American flag abroad and have critical things to say about the country. Ultimately, I think could inspire foreign audiences. And if I was at the State Department and kind of counseling them on that, I would say to lean into that. We have a long history of the Jazz Ambassadors program going to Sub-Saharan Africa and saying, they were representing a inherently racist country at that point in time, and yet still proud to represent it. Those contradictions can be discussed and I think really lift up discourse about freedom of expression.
All right, American football abroad. Any final thought you'd like to leave people with?
Well, I think the sport is just continuing to grow and inspire foreign audiences and really holds a lot of potential. And go Seahawks.
One other question. Do you see maybe some friction between the commercial interests of the NFL and perhaps the diplomatic, political, cultural interests of the State Department?
It's a really good point. At times, yes, although ultimately I think commercial interests are best advanced through entities like this. They're opening up new markets. They're building those connections, establishing their brand abroad. That paves the way for others to go in the State Department to facilitate other American brands following in their footsteps.
All right, Evan Coover.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being with us.
Depending on what happens Sunday, not the Seahawks winning, but what Bad Bunny has to say, we may want to have you back on next week.
I look forward to it.